Hello, it's Rob Cornish, and I can't remember the last time if I've ever done 2 blog posts on 2 consecutive days, but I think this is the first time. The reason is because I've had a lot of emails, actually for a few weeks, but mostly they seem to have intensified in the last sort of two or 3 days, the latter half of this week, on GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation from the EU, which is coming into effect next month, in just under a month actually, on the 25th of May. So I thought, partly for selfish reasons, to save me a lot of labour answering everyone individually, but also hopefully just to be helpful as best I can to you, I thought I'd just record this video and just say a few words of guidance which will hopefully help you on how to approach GDPR, so you can make your best effort to get things right and comply. Now, first of all, if you don't know what GDPR is and you've never heard of it before, then I'm not going to explain kind of the basics of it, because you can find that out yourself. If you go to Wikipedia, that's not a bad resource just to have sort of a couple of minutes just having a look through that. And also at the end of this video, I'm going to talk about another resource which is a qualified legal source, which I would recommend that you consider checking out as well. Before that though, I just want to make a few points. The first is that I am not a lawyer, and therefore I'm not qualified to give you any advice whatsoever or any recommendations whatsoever on implementing or complying with GDPR. I just can't do that. And even if I did, I would suggest you would be unwise to listen to me, because I'm not an expert. And that's the first approach that I take with any kind of regulation, whether it's to do with data protection, as in this case, or whether it's maybe to do with tax or accounting or something else. Listen to the experts, because I'm sure, I haven't checked it out, but I'm sure if you go on the Warrior Forum right now, there's all sorts of crazy opinions from unqualified people floating around. It's just a waste of time, and you just get yourself twisted up really in all of that. It's probably the same on Facebook as well, I'm sure. I tend to just, life's too short for me to get involved in that, so I try not to go near those kind of areas. So go for people who are qualified. So like I said, what I'm going to do is just talk about how you might approach this to get it right, okay, rather than give you specific do's and don'ts on your website, all right, or anything else for your marketing. So the first thing is that, having looked at this for a short time now, and getting into the detail of it, in my opinion, the first point is it's a good thing. I welcome this. I think it's great, and I think it's a good idea for the authorities to take steps to protect individuals' data, because obviously it's becoming used more and more. Big data is a great industry going forward. As my understanding is that the previous EU regulation on this is I think it was in the mid-90s, the last sort of major regulation. So clearly it's time for an update to take into account what's been happening since. And I think hopefully this goes in the right direction. It won't be perfect, so it's a good thing in general, because we're all consumers, we're all individuals, so it's protecting us as well. The second point is that, as far as I can tell, and I'm almost 100% on this, this is not a revolution. And it's not an earthquake, all right? So I'm sure there's lots of scaremongering out there, and, oh no, it's all going to be terrible, and you can't do this and you can't do that. I just don't buy that at all. I think this is merely an evolution and a continuation of regulation which we've seen for years and years and years, going back decades. So there's existing laws on data protection in place already in the EU, in different countries. And if you look beyond data protection, there's all sorts of other regulations that all businesses must comply by, depending on what you're doing. So in sort of, more related to kind of what we do, online business and that kind of thing, If you think back, you might remember this if you've been around for a few years like me. If you think back, wasn't so long ago that Canada introduced some new rules related to email marketing. The European Union had some new VAT or sales tax regulation on digital products. The FTC in the United States also changed their stance over time as well and brought in new regulation. This happens all the time, okay? And of course, some regulations are a bit funky around the edges, and it's there's people that lose out, and that it's never perfect, but generally it's probably a good thing, right? And it's just reality anyway, whether you like it or not, it's the reality. So this is just a continuation, and I can guarantee you next year there'll probably be something else that'll come up, all right? So there's no reason to get het up about this or anything. You just take it in your stride. It's part of doing business. It's just what happens, okay? And it's been going on for years as well. So don't fall into the trap of becoming panicked, as I think a lot of people do. Every time there's any kind of new regulation, you can guarantee a few weeks until the deadline, there's all sorts of stuff going round, and people getting in a tiz about it. So let's calm down and just take it in our stride. Now, in my opinion, in terms of what to do, this is where I can't, I'm not qualified to give you this, but probably it will involve certainly a new privacy or an updated privacy policy on your website, and most of all, I think, is just being really upfront and open and transparent with people who sign up for your squeeze page or buy your products and that kind of thing. Just be really open and transparent about what you're going to do with their data, okay, and how you're going to treat them. And really, that's the foundation, another sort of anchor, if you like, in my thinking about this. Yes, there's all sorts of kind of technical compliance issues and the actual legislation itself, but kind of the bedrock of it is just being reasonable and treating customers and subscribers and visitors to your website with respect, and do things that they would find reasonable. Okay, so if you've got an opt-in, they will find it entirely reasonable that you're going to use that data to deliver them the thing they opted in for. That's entirely reasonable. They would not find it reasonable if that email then got sold on or given away to 5 other email lists and syndicated and then blasted with email. That's completely, so that's the kind of thing that you wouldn't do anyway, right? Because it's just kind of common sense. Now, that's not enough on its own. Common sense and treating people well is not enough to comply with GDPR. Okay, we do need to look at this in a bit more detail, but it's a great starting point. Okay, so just treat other people how you'd like to be treated, and remember also that with this kind of legislation, there's no entrapment, right? The authorities aren't there in some like secret lab, like looking around at everyone's squeeze pages, trying to find out something that's wrong, and then going after them, raiding people's houses. It just doesn't work like that. You know from the news that the companies that get into trouble with this kind of thing generally are the ones that get complaints, and it's specifically repeated complaints. And when you hear about them on the news, they're doing things which are unreasonable, all right? So it's complaints driven largely, all right? So again, get it into perspective, and I think that if you look after that and treat people reasonably, yes, be transparent and have the privacy policy and do the other compliance things. But if you do that, that's a great start. Okay, it's not enough to do everything, but it's a start and a good place to sort of anchor yourself, if that makes sense. So The other thing that I would come back to is on the kind of specific advice. I do know more about this than I'm saying in this video, all right? There's certain aspects of it, but I'm just not going to get into the specifics because I'm not qualified, and it would be wrong of me, I feel, to give you that or give you my actual thoughts, because my interpretation, although I think I'm right, of course, it could be wrong, and I don't want to mislead you. What I would like to do instead, though, is give you a source which is a legal opinion that you can follow if you like, because I've looked at a few different things, and this is one thing that I have found to be quite useful. So I'm going to link to a Facebook group below this video by a legal expert in data, a lawyer called Suzanne Dibble, and she's got a Facebook group which you can learn loads from. There's a lot of there's some videos on there and a recording of a webinar and stuff like that that you can watch. So again, as I always recommend, the 40-minute a day rule works really, really well. Just like when you're doing other things, you're building your opt-in pages or you're building your products or whatever you're doing, do the same with here. So just take 30 or 40 minutes a day over the next few days into next week, if you like. Put the timer on in Google and just study GDPR. And I think you'll find after about probably 3 or 4 days, you'll start to get a picture about what is required. Now, Suzanne does have some things for sale, I think, as well. I'm not, that's entirely up to you. This is not an affiliate promotion or anything like that. It's just literally, as I said, in response to a lot of kind of emails that I've been receiving. So the links below, please feel free to comment on this video as well on the blog. That's great. But if you're going to do so, please do not give any kind of interpretation or advice on GDPR unless you are a qualified lawyer, because I just don't want to go down that route. Okay, this is not the place for it, and I don't want anyone to be misled. So hopefully that will make sense. If there are any comments like that, I will just delete them, which I very rarely do, but I think in this case it's worth doing so no one gets kind of confused or misled. And that's it. So I'm sorry I can't offer you more than I've said, but hopefully that general approach about thinking about things like GDPR will help you. And the bottom line is it's absolutely fine. It really is. It's just about making the best effort you can to do the right thing. And a few hours, 40 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day over a few days studying this will get you up to speed. You'll know what to do, and you can make your best effort to comply and so on. All right, and I think that's the best way to approach any of these kind of new regulations. And like I said, this is not by any means the first, and it certainly won't be the last. It's just, the way things are. All right, well, hopefully that's helped, and have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. Don't get bogged down in this. It is a bit dull, I have to say, but it's just a fact of life. Maybe leave it till next week. But anyway, have a great weekend, and I'm sure talk soon. All right, bye.